Thank you for staying with us. This is Newsroom Africa, Channel 405. Now, we are still continuing our discussion focusing on unemployment issues. Now, earlier this week, Stats SA published its latest quarterly labour force survey showing that South Africans' unemployment rate remains unchanged at 29.1%. Now, this painted a very bleak picture of how bad things are in the country. I'm joined in the studio by Ayanda Kota, convener of the Unemployed People's Movement, that gives a voice to South Africans more than 10 million unemployed and fights really for the right to work and also to earn a basic income grant. Ayanda, thank you for your time. I think let's look at the Assembly of the Unemployed. Who exactly is part of this assembly? Who constitutes this movement?
Well, it's quite a number of organizations that are part of these movements. Movements that are working on what is called service delivery. Movements that are working in mining, that do activism in mining, movements that do activism in gender, because you would understand that unemployment underpins and all of this. So it's quite a number of organizations that work on the assembly, or that are part of the assembly of the unemployed.
Do you work a lot with the unions? Because I would assume, you know, with unemployment and a lot of downscaling and job losses, specifically the unions, that's what they're advocating against. Do you find that there's usually a collaboration where lines are crossed?
Well, the honest is that we haven't witnessed really commitment on the part of the unions, but recently, only last week, there was a press conference where SAFTU was part of that conference, the Assembly of the Unemployed was part of that conference, and also AMCO was part of that conference. And there's been also commitment from organizations like NUMSA. So there have also been initiatives like the Working Class Summit. So there are initiatives, but we continue to believe that in terms of the leadership of the organized sector of the employed, they haven't showed really commitment. So we hope with this figure and after the press conference, you will start to see the real commitment.
Because really, it almost looks like they will go from the unions, job losses occur, and then they come to you. And ultimately, of those who are unemployed, and ultimately, I'm sure what unions want to do is to prevent their stakeholders and their union members from being unemployed in the first case. So you think you might start seeing a collaboration between the various groups?
I think it's quite important. It's quite important that the unemployed and the employed, the unions, they are important that they work together, because you've got economy that is shedding jobs. You've got a high rate in terms of the numbers of the casual workers and that do not have rights, and you continue to have the outsourcing, and in many sectors, in particular in retail. So I think it's quite important for us to be able and to confront and the terror and the violence of the unemployment. It's important to see this unity of the employed and unemployed. So it's quite important. It's long overdue. We have been making this point, and it warms our heart to realize that the Secretary General of SAFTU, the President of AMCO, Mr. Matunjwa, and NUMSA have been making this point, are quite realizing that it is important that we ought to work together, because at the end of the day, all of us, we are at the receiving end as the working class. So there is no need why we cannot work together. There is no reason why we cannot unite.
Now, talk to us about some of the practical issues and practical experiences that you've had to deal with as a movement, as far as dealing with those who are unemployed. It's very easy to quote numbers and to, talk statistics, but ultimately these are people's daily lives that are being affected. Give us an example of some of the issues that you deal with.
Well, I think to me, you might have the best constitution in the world. You might have the Bill of Rights, the right to dignity, the right to shelter, and all other rights. But if unemployment continues unabated, if millions, more than 10 million of people continue to be unemployed, all those rights are meaningless. They mean literally.
I wonder why you use the figure 10 million. when the unemployment rate in the country is so much higher?
What
does that figure? Over 10 million?
I'm saying over 10 million. So I'm saying all those rights means literally nothing if people don't have jobs. So, I mean, we are also fighting to say in the Bill of Rights, the right to work must also be enshrined, because it's an important right. Because unemployment means no dignity, unemployment means no shelter, unemployment dehumanizes, unemployment is the greatest thief of hope. Unemployment turns you into this shapeless daylight zombie. So it's important that the right to work is also enshrined in that constitution. It's also important for the South African government to realize that unemployment forfeits the dignity of the people. So it's quite important to say, to be able to address the question of unemployment in this country. So we believe that.
I was talking to Isabel Fry just a moment ago, and I mean, you were here listening in on that conversation, and we're talking about whose responsibility it is to take care of the unemployed and to provide work. And she made it sound as if we're almost in a no man's land, where business has its own priorities, which is making profit, and government has its own priorities, which is, I guess, setting policy and guidelines for a conducive environment, meaning that the workers are pretty much left to their own device. But there's a comment that you've made as the movement saying it's quite a scandal that a country as wealthy as South Africa has an unemployment rate as high as we have. What would you say are the contributing factors to that unemployment rate?
Well, you're right, it's scandalous. Also, we don't think we're in no man's land. I think there are two things. The first thing, people elect the government. So it becomes the government of the people, for the people. So there is no way or at no stage that the people can be in a no man's land.
But are you feeling the government is protecting the people
I'm getting
there. Those jobs?
I'm getting there. So it's just not possible. Whether it's gender violence, whether it's unemployment or any other social ill that is scandalous, that is an assault on the rights and dignity of the people. So people can never be in no man's land. That's number one. But again, number two, we believe government have the muscle to address the unemployment, but there is no commitment on the part of the government. When the government can create conditions for economy to be able to generate jobs. Let me make an example. You've got your public investment corporation, which manages your UIF, which manages your GEPF, your Government Employees Pension Fund. 87 of that PIC fund belongs to the Government Employee Pension Fund. And we are saying you can use or invest some of that money in addressing the crisis of unemployment. COSATU agrees on this matter. SAFTU agrees on this matter. That's number one. But number two, there's something that government can also do in addressing the unemployment rate. I mean, the infrastructure in this country has collapsed. Everywhere you go, there's a crisis of water. There's a backlog in housing. I mean, the health system in this country has collapsed. So you don't need to outsource that. You can use that in creating unemployment. I mean, under apartheid government, apartheid was building houses. They did not outsource that part. So I'm saying you can generate or you can create millions of jobs through the renewable energy program as well. So I'm saying it is not true that the government cannot do anything. It is not true. There's no truth that there's no money in this country. It's a fallacy. It's a lie. It is not true. But over and above, I think it is important for me to make this emphasis that people cannot be in a limbo. The dignity of people cannot be assaulted on a daily basis, and then you have a conversation to see whose business it is. It's very scandalous because people do elect
Let me ask you this. Should the PIC, quote-unquote, invest money in job creation and employment, would that really be an investment, or would it be almost like a donation, a charity, an upliftment program? What are the tangible results that the PIC will get from that? Because ultimately an investment has to yield results and profit.
I think to me it's two. Currently you've got an economy that is growing. And I think to me economics 101. As long as you've got millions of people that cannot participate in your economy, there is no way that you can have economic growth. Since 1994, we have been cheated and lied to say no. You'd remember under President Thabo Mbeki, at least the economy was growing at 2%. But it was termed as the jobless economic growth because there is this concept of filtering down, that the working class, the poor people must go under the table and wait for the crumbs from the table of the masters. I mean, that hasn't, it doesn't make sense economically. You would agree with me that I think what we need in this country is wage-led economic growth. Because if you've got people participating and very active in the economy, they've got the purchasing power, they are participating in your economy, then you would have economic growth. That's number one. But number two, it will not be a charity, because you will investing in people, you will be investing in the country. So it will not be a charity. Currently, this money is being invested by the bosses. It's only bosses that are benefiting from this money. So it only makes sense that you cannot have your people, you cannot have your economy that's not growing, you cannot have your people whose dignity are being forfeited on a daily basis, that are unemployed. You cannot have townships that have been turned into concentration camp, whereas you've got that money. So it will be an investment, I agree with you.
So let me ask you this. Some of the things that you've called for a scrapping of the extended public works program. For example, you've complained and said the country is too reliant on foreign direct investment. Why don't you just put that in context for us as we close off?
Well, basically in Cape Town, the expanded public works program employees are coming together, and they are saying to the city of Cape Town, you ought to absorb us. Because you'd remember those people are earning only about 800 a month. And what can you do with your 800 rand per month? So, I mean, there's enough fund in the city of Cape Town where they are able to absorb these people. So there are those conversations that are taking place, and unions are part of this, and the Assembly of the Unemployed are part of that. So, yeah, we believe that these things could be done. What is lacking is the commitment from the government. We are calling on the government to have this commitment. But before we close off, there are also two things.
In 30 seconds.
In 30 seconds. The Assembly of the Unemployed will be having a summit of the unemployed and the unions that will be in Cape Town. And there's a program. We'll keep you updated as far as that program is concerned. That will lead to the budget day where there will be demonstration. And also Oxfam is also convening the assembly with the street traders, the people that are working on the informal economy, and also to integrate inequality into this way.
We'll have to leave it at that for this evening, but what is the date of that summit? The date of
that summit is starting just before, I think it's on the 24th, leading up to the budget.
All right, starting on the 24th, as long as you're there on that day. But thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
That's Ayanda Kota, the convener of the Unemployed People's Movement. Do stay with us. We continue with coverage of the day's top stories when we return. Thank you so much.